When my sister announced her fourth pregnancy, I thought she was joking when she said, "The kids will stay with you until I give birth." But she wasn't. And when I refused, everything fell apart. Stay with me as I walk you through this story. And if it makes you feel something, don't forget to show some love by subscribing, liking, and sharing. It really helps more than you know. My name is Nia Coleman. I'm 29 years old, and I've worked as a nurse for almost 6 years now. My life isn't perfect, but I've built it with my own 2 hands. I live in a small apartment, I work long hours, and I value my quiet time. I don't have kids, and honestly, I've never really been the type to run around babysitting. My sister Raina, on the other hand, has been married for almost 10 years to Marcus Wells. She's 34, already has 3 kids, and now she's pregnant with her 4th. The night she told the family, everyone clapped and congratulated her. I was smiling too, until she looked straight at me and casually dropped the bomb. "So, Nia, you'll take the kids while I'm at the hospital and during recovery. They'll stay with you." She said it like it was already decided, like I had no choice in the matter. I froze, completely blindsided. I laughed nervously at first, thinking she was just making one of her dramatic jokes. But then I noticed the way she folded her arms and raised her eyebrows. She was dead serious. "Wait, what do you mean they'll stay with me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Exactly what I said," she replied. "You don't have kids, you live alone, and you've got space. It's just temporary." I shook my head immediately. "Raina, I can't. I work 12-hour shifts. I barely get time to rest. I can't suddenly take care of 3 kids full-time. That's not fair." Her face changed instantly, like I had just insulted her. "So you're saying no? You're saying you won't help your own sister when she needs you?" "It's not about not helping," I tried to explain. "I can visit, I can come around, but I can't take them in. That's not realistic for me." She scoffed loudly, the kind of scoff meant to cut. "Wow, you're really selfish, Nia. Everything with you is always about you. Do you even care about family?" My heart was pounding. This was supposed to be a happy family announcement, but now everyone was staring at me like I had done something wrong. I stood my ground, but inside I was shaking. She wanted to turn my life upside down without even asking me first. That night was the first crack. I knew refusing her demand was going to cost me, but I had no idea just how deep the fallout would go. The very next morning after our argument, my phone rang. It was my mother, Dolores Coleman. Her voice was sharp, carrying that tone I'd grown up with, the tone that meant I was already in trouble before I even spoke. "Nia," she said, "your sister told me what happened. You refused to help her? She's about to have her 4th child, and you're turning your back on family?" I tried to explain, to remind her that I worked long shifts and barely had time to keep my own place together. But she cut me off. "You don't have kids. You're single. You've got nothing tying you down. It's your turn to step up for family. That's what we do." Her words hit me like a knife. My own mother wasn't even listening. She had already chosen Raina's side. It felt like no matter what I said, I was the selfish one. Later that week, I got a quiet call from Marcus, my brother-in-law. He never raised his voice, never really stood up against Raina. He sounded tired, almost defeated. "Nia, I'll be honest with you. I didn't even want this 4th kid. I told Raina we couldn't handle it, but she wouldn't hear it. I can't fight her on this. She's set on you taking the kids." "I'm sorry." Hearing him say that made me feel even smaller. Even the man who married her couldn't say no, so why was I expected to just give up my entire life? Things got worse quickly. At a family cookout that weekend, I could feel eyes on me. My aunt pulled me aside and whispered, "Nia, people are talking. They say you turned your back on your sister. You really told her no." I didn't even know what to say. Apparently, Raina had already spun the story to everyone. It didn't stop there. A neighbor I barely spoke to caught me in the hallway of my building and said, "You're Raina's sister, right? Why would you leave her hanging like that? Poor thing, pregnant and all those kids." I stood there, stunned, wondering how far Raina had spread this narrative. Everywhere I turned, I was painted as cold, heartless, ungrateful. I was the woman who hated kids and looked down on mothers, according to the whispers. None of it was true, but the weight of it pressed on me like a storm I couldn't escape. At night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if I really was selfish. Maybe I should just do it, take the kids, sacrifice my peace like everyone expected. But another part of me burned with anger. Why was it always me? Why was my life the one everyone else thought was disposable? The pressure was suffocating. I hadn't just said no to my sister. I had unknowingly said no to an entire family ready to make me the villain. And it was only the beginning. It was a Saturday morning when I heard the knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, but the pounding was so loud and insistent that my stomach dropped. When I opened it, there stood Reyna, her 3 kids beside her, each holding little bags stuffed with clothes and toys. She didn't even greet me. She just pushed the first suitcase forward with her foot. "Here," she said briskly. "They'll stay with you now. I'm too far along, and I need my rest. Don't argue." I froze in the doorway, staring at the children's wide eyes. They looked confused, like they weren't even sure what was happening. I quickly stepped forward and blocked the entrance. "Reyna, no. You can't just dump them here. We already talked about this. I told you I can't do it." She let out a laugh, the kind that was meant to mock. "You think you have a choice? You're their aunt. Family steps up whether they want to or not. You're not going to let them stand here with bags in their hands, are you?" My heart was pounding, but I shook my head firmly. "Yes, I am. I love them, but I can't raise them. I'm not their parent, Reyna. You can't force this on me." Her face twisted with rage. She grabbed one of the bags and shoved it against my chest, trying to push past me. I pushed it back into her hands and planted myself in the doorway. "No." I said no. My voice cracked, louder than I meant, but I couldn't back down. The shouting grew so loud that neighbors began peeking into the hallway. Mrs. Turner from across the hall opened her door, watching with wide eyes. Another neighbor whispered something under his breath. My cheeks burned with humiliation, but I held my ground. "You're unbelievable, Nia," Reyna yelled, her voice echoing through the corridor. "Selfish, heartless, useless. What kind of sister are you? What kind of woman refuses to help her own family?" The kids started to cry softly, clinging to each other while Marcus stood awkwardly behind her. His eyes looked tired, his voice low. "I'm sorry, Nia," he muttered, not even raising his head. "I didn't want this to happen like this." But he didn't move to stop her, didn't tell her to turn around. He just stood there, letting her tear me apart. I wanted to cry, but instead I stood firm. "Take your kids home, Reyna. This isn't happening." For a moment, she just stared at me, her chest heaving with fury. Then she yanked the bags back from the floor, grabbed her children's hands, and stormed away. As she reached the stairwell, she turned and spat out the words that sent a chill down my spine. "You'll regret this. I swear you will." The door closed behind me, and I sank against it, trembling. I had drawn my line in the sand, but it felt like a war had just begun. The days after that fight at my apartment felt like I had been cut out of my own family. Phone calls I used to get from cousins stopped coming. Invitations to Sunday dinners at my mother's house disappeared. I didn't realize it at first, but soon it became painfully clear. I was being pushed out. When I finally reached out to my mother, her voice was icy. "Nia, you made your choice. You abandoned your nieces and nephews. Don't act surprised if people don't want to be around someone who turns their back on family." Her words hit me harder than I expected. "Abandon?" I whispered. "Mom, I didn't abandon anyone. I just can't raise 3 kids while working full-time. That's not abandoning. That's being honest about my limits." But she wasn't hearing me. She had already decided I was the villain. Not long after, I learned that Reyna was going around telling everyone that I hated kids. She painted this picture of me as some cold-hearted career woman who thought I was better than everyone else because I didn't have children. One of my aunts even called me out, saying, "Reyna told us you look down on mothers." Is that true? The lies spread like wildfire. Family I'd grown up with started avoiding me. At a cousin's birthday party, I walked in and felt the air change. Conversations hushed, eyes turned toward me, and people suddenly had nothing to say. It was like I wasn't part of them anymore. I tried to hold my head high, but when I went home, I crumbled. At night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my chest heavy, wondering if I really was a bad person. Maybe I was selfish. Maybe I should have just taken the kids to keep the peace. I replayed my mother's words in my head. "It's your turn to help." Was she right? The stress began to eat at me. My appetite disappeared. Some nights I cried until I couldn't breathe, my pillow soaked through with tears. I dragged myself through my nursing shifts, plastering on a smile for patients while inside I felt like I was falling apart. I could feel myself shrinking, my confidence fading with every whisper and sideways glance. But underneath all that pain, a different fire was starting to burn. Resentment. Anger. The betrayal cut deep. My own family, The people who were supposed to know me, love me, stand by me, had turned their backs without even asking for my side of the story. They were ready to believe Reina's lies because it was easier than questioning her. I felt like I was fighting a war alone, but deep inside, a voice kept telling me that I wasn't wrong. I couldn't give up my whole life just to fit into their idea of what a good sister should be. And as much as it broke me, part of me knew this was only the beginning of something much bigger. It happened on a Wednesday afternoon while I was finishing a long shift at the hospital. My phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a woman's voice said, "Hi, is this Ms. Nia Coleman? We need you to come pick up your nephew. He's been waiting for almost 2 hours and no one else has shown up." For a second, I was too stunned to reply. "I'm sorry, what? I think you have the wrong person. I'm not listed as his guardian." The woman's tone shifted slightly, sounding confused. "You are on the emergency contact list, Ms. Coleman. You need to come get him. The school is closing soon." My heart dropped. I had never signed any forms, never agreed to be anyone's backup parent. Yet there I was, forced to leave work early, humiliated as I walked into the school office and saw my nephew sitting there, his backpack beside him, looking small and abandoned. The secretary handed me the clipboard with the contact sheet, and sure enough, there was my name and number written in bold letters, without my permission. I clenched my jaw all the way home, furious, until I finally marched up to Reina's house that evening. She opened the door with a calm smile, like nothing was wrong. "Why is my name on your kid's school papers?" I demanded, holding up the form I'd taken a picture of. She barely blinked. "Because I knew you'd pick them up if something happened. And look, you did." The casual arrogance in her voice made my blood boil. "You forged my information without asking me. Do you understand how serious this is? I had to leave work in the middle of my shift because you couldn't be bothered to show up for your own kid." Reina leaned against the doorframe, her arms folded across her chest. Her tone dripped with smugness. "You'll do it anyway, Nia. You always do. You act tough, but in the end, you can't let them down. That's why I don't even worry about it." Her words sliced through me, sharper than any insult. She wasn't even apologetic. She was proud of using me. Proud of assuming I'd bend, that I'd break my back just to cover for her mistakes. For the first time, I didn't cry. I didn't even argue. I just stared at her, a cold wave washing over me. If she thought I was weak, if she thought I'd always be the one to clean up after her, she was about to learn otherwise. That night, sitting in my apartment with the silence pressing against me, I realized something. If they all wanted to see me as the selfish sister, the bad guy, the heartless one, fine. I would give them exactly what they painted me to be. Not by giving in, but by fighting back. The resentment inside me hardened into something sharper. That was the moment the seed of revenge was planted. From that day on, I decided if Reina wanted to play dirty, I would play smarter. I stopped wasting my energy arguing with her, and instead started paying attention. Every call from the school, every complaint from the daycare, every late fee notice that somehow ended up forwarded to me. I saved them. Screenshots, emails, printed papers. I bought a small folder and started filing everything away. It felt strange at first, like I was building a case against my own sister. But deep down I knew I had to protect myself. One day, all of this might matter. It didn't take long before the pile started growing. The school called twice in 1 week about her being late to pick the kids up. Daycare sent reminders about unpaid balances. One teacher even hinted over the phone that the kids often came in hungry or wearing the same clothes for days. Each time, I felt a mix of anger and sadness, but I didn't argue anymore. I just wrote it down. One evening, Marcus called me after Reina had gone out. His voice was low, almost whispering. "Nia, I need to be honest with you. Reina barely handles the kids. Most days, it's me getting them ready for school, making their lunches, putting them to bed. She says she's tired or she needs rest, but really, she's out with friends or just scrolling on her phone." I sat there listening, my pen in hand, scribbling notes as he spoke. "Why don't you tell Mom or the family?" I asked quietly. He sighed heavily. "Because they wouldn't believe me. They see Reina as the perfect mother. And I tried once. I even thought about leaving her, filing for divorce. But her parents, her sisters, everyone pressured me to stay. They said it would destroy the family image." His words carried a kind of hopelessness I wasn't used to hearing from him. That night, when I hung up, I stared at the folder on my table. What had started as a way to protect myself was turning into something more. Reina wasn't just overburdening me. She was failing her own children. And Marcus, though flawed for staying silent, was proof that I wasn't imagining things. Every time she tried to smear me, every time she whispered lies about me being selfish, I felt stronger. Because I knew the truth was on my side, and now I was holding the proof in my hands. I stopped crying at night. Instead, I spent that time organizing files, dating each incident, and making sure nothing slipped through the cracks. I knew it wasn't the kind of revenge that exploded overnight, but it was the kind that grew slowly, like a storm waiting just beyond the horizon. And when the time came, I would be ready. The family dinner was supposed to be peaceful, but I knew better than to expect that. My mother had insisted I come, saying it was time we sat down like family. I almost didn't go, but something inside me told me this was the moment I'd been waiting for. I walked into the dining room with my folder tucked carefully inside my bag, my hands steady even though my heart pounded in my chest. At first, everything was polite smiles and small talk, but I could see Reina's eyes burning holes into me from across the table. I avoided her gaze, focusing on my plate, until she finally cleared her throat loudly. "Since we're all here," she began, her voice carrying that familiar dramatic tone, "I think it's time we address the elephant in the room. Nia has abandoned my kids." Again, the table went quiet. Forks clinked against plates. My mother sighed and gave me that disappointed look, the one that always made me feel like I was a child again. "Nia, is this true? Why do you keep turning your back on your family?" I didn't flinch this time. Instead, I set down my fork, reached into my bag, and pulled out the folder. "Actually," I said calmly, "this is the truth." I slid a stack of papers across the table. Call logs from the school. Letters from daycare about unpaid balances. Notes about late pickups. The silence in the room deepened as everyone leaned forward to read. These are all the times Reina left her kids waiting for hours. Times the school had to call me because she used my name without permission. Proof that she's been lying to you all, while painting me as the selfish one. Reina's face turned red. "That's ridiculous. She's twisting everything. Those are just..." "Enough!" Marcus's voice cut through the air, low but firm. For once, he didn't stay silent. "She's telling the truth. I've been carrying the weight at home. Reina barely takes care of the kids. She leaves them to me, or to Nia, while she does whatever she wants. I should have said it sooner, but I didn't want to be the one to break the family apart." The shock around the table was almost physical. My mother, always quick to defend Reina, opened her mouth but no words came out. For the first time, she looked uncertain, her eyes darting between me, Marcus, and the evidence spread before her. "You're lying, Marcus," Reina shrieked, pushing back her chair. Her voice cracked with fury, but no one rushed to her side this time. No one defended her. The silence of the family said more than words ever could. She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door, her footsteps echoing through the dining room. Before she left, she turned and spat out, "You'll all regret listening to her lies." Then the door slammed so hard the glasses on the table rattled. I sat back in my chair, my hands steady, my heart calm. For the first time in months, the truth was finally out in the open. Reina's world started to unravel faster than she could control it. After Nia's calm but devastating expose at the family dinner, Marcus had quietly reached out to an attorney. It wasn't long before the papers were served separation. The man who once tolerated Reina's chaos for the sake of family appearances had finally had enough. And the cruel twist? The very evidence Nia had collected, the school reports, the call logs, the daycare complaints, was now the backbone of Marcus's case against her. When Reina stormed into Nia's apartment days later, she wasn't the fiery, smug older sister anymore. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her hands trembling as she clutched a wrinkled tissue. She didn't come with insults this time, she came begging. "Nia, please, please, you have to help me. If the court takes this the wrong way, I could lose my kids. You don't want that for them, do you?" Her voice cracked, desperation leaking through every word. But Nia's heart, once so easy to manipulate, had hardened like stone. She stood firm, arms crossed, gaze unflinching. "You only ever wanted me when it was convenient, Reina. When I said no, you smeared my name. You lied to our family. You made me the villain. And now you want me to save you." Her words cut sharp, colder than Reina had ever imagined her little sister capable of being. For the first time, Reina had no retort, no venom to spit. Just silence. The kids ended up staying with Marcus while the legal storm brewed. For them, it was confusing. Mom was crying more, Dad was quieter but steady, and Aunt Nia didn't come around with the same open arms. Still, they felt safer in Marcus's care, away from the constant shouting and chaos of Reina's moods. Teachers even noticed the difference. The children came to school on time, homework completed, clothes clean. The subtle signs of neglect were fading under Marcus's watch. Meanwhile, Dolores, once Reina's staunchest defender, sat in disbelief as reality crashed down. The woman who had proudly told anyone who would listen that Nia abandoned her nieces and nephews now found herself whispering apologies over the phone, her voice shaky with regret. "I see it now," she admitted to Nia one evening. "I pushed you unfairly. I thought you were being selfish, but I was blind. I should have listened." Nia didn't respond with warmth. She simply said, "You believed what you wanted to believe. I don't owe you forgiveness." For the first time in years, the family dynamics shifted entirely. The golden child, Reina, was now the disgraced one. The scapegoat, Nia, stood vindicated. The power tables had flipped so completely that Reina could barely recognize her own reflection in the mess she had created. But Nia wasn't done. This was just the beginning. She had tasted what it felt like to stop being the family's doormat, and she wasn't going back. The courtroom was silent when the judge delivered the verdict. Reina's painted confidence had cracked over weeks of hearings, every late pickup, every daycare complaint, every school report stacked against her like bricks in a wall she could no longer climb. The evidence was undeniable. Reina had neglected her children. When the words came, "Primary custody is granted to Marcus Daniels," she gasped audibly, her hand flying to her mouth as if she'd been physically struck. Marcus sat still, relief hidden behind calm eyes, while the kids played quietly with crayons at a small table in the corner. For the first time in years, they weren't bouncing between chaos and guilt. They had stability ahead of them. Reina, however, collapsed inward. Her furious whispers of, "This isn't fair, she set me up," reached Nia's ears even as the bailiff escorted her out of the room. She didn't even look at Marcus. Her venom was aimed entirely at her sister. In her mind, Nia had orchestrated the entire downfall. Marcus moved into his own apartment shortly after, the kids settling in with surprising ease. Their routines smoothed out. Bedtimes were consistent, homework got done, and they laughed more than they had in years. Neighbors even remarked on the difference, how much lighter the children seemed. Slowly, their world began to heal. Meanwhile, Reina sank into isolation. Her friends dwindled, unwilling to stand by someone branded an unfit mother. She avoided family gatherings, claiming everyone's against me. And when she did appear, her bitterness poisoned the air. "Nia destroyed me," she would mutter, shaking her head with hollow eyes. "She wanted me gone, and she got her wish." But for Nia, it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice. She hadn't wanted her nieces and nephews to suffer. She had wanted the truth to be seen. For years, she'd been cast as the cold, selfish sister, but now the lies were stripped away. And while the scars of betrayal remained, there was a grim satisfaction in knowing she had survived it without bending, without caving to guilt. Dolores, once Reina's fiercest protector, treated Nia differently now. She listened instead of lecturing, asked instead of demanding. At family dinners, her voice softened when she spoke to Nia, almost reverent with remorse. It wasn't perfect. Nia still carried the sting of years of dismissal. But it was respect, finally, after a lifetime of being overlooked. Reina's downfall had left a fracture in the family that would never fully mend. But as Nia watched Marcus carry his kids out of the courtroom that day, their small hands wrapped trustingly in his, she felt a strange peace. For once, she wasn't the villain in the story. She was the one who refused to be broken. And though her sister blamed her for everything, Nia knew the truth. Reina hadn't been ruined by her. She'd been ruined by her own choices. Nia sat by her apartment window one quiet evening, the city lights glowing below like scattered fireflies. For months, she had questioned herself, wondering if she had been selfish, if refusing her sister had made her cold. But now, with everything that had happened, she finally saw it clearly. Saying no hadn't been selfish. It had been survival. Her life, once swallowed by guilt and pressure, was hers again. No late-night phone calls demanding she pick up children who weren't hers. No doorsteps crowded with bags packed by someone else. No whispered accusations that she didn't care about family. For the first time in years, she felt free, like a chain had been cut from around her neck. Her family treated her differently now. They no longer expected her to sacrifice without question. At gatherings, she came and went as she pleased, not dragged into responsibilities she never agreed to. Even Dolores, who once scolded her for abandoning her sister, had softened. She brought Nia tea when she visited, spoke gently, and for once, didn't tell her how to live her life. Boundaries had been rebuilt, strong, steady walls Nia would never allow anyone to break again. Marcus stopped by one Saturday afternoon with the kids. They laughed as they spilled juice on Nia's couch, as they showed her drawings and tugged at her hands to play. And Marcus, weary but calmer now, looked at her with gratitude in his eyes. "You saved them," he said quietly when the kids ran off to the balcony. "You saved me too. If you hadn't stood your ground, I don't know where we'd be right now." Those words sank deep into her heart. She hadn't set out to be a savior. She had only wanted to protect her own peace. But in doing so, she had given the children a chance at stability and Marcus the courage to step up. Weeks later, while leaving a cafe, Nia spotted Reyna across the street. Her sister stood alone, arms folded, eyes darting around as if searching for someone who would never come. Their gazes met briefly, and for the first time, Nia didn't feel anger or guilt. She felt nothing but freedom. Reyna's life was hers to manage, her mistakes hers to carry. Nia had laid down that burden long ago. She walked away without a second glance. The weight of betrayal no longer clung to her. It had been transformed into strength. She was no longer the fallback babysitter, the scapegoat, the sister who was expected to sacrifice without end. She was her own person, independent, whole, and finally at peace. As she reached her car and the breeze brushed against her face, Nia smiled to herself. Betrayal had once threatened to break her, but instead, it had built her. In the end, her sister's chaos had given her the greatest gift of all, the power to stand tall, unshaken, and free. Do you believe Nia made the right choice by refusing to take on her sister's kids? Or should she have sacrificed her peace for family? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if stories like this resonate with you, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next one.